Representative, please come forward. Mr. Brescia, of the President and CEO of the Ontario Energy Association. Welcome. I know you know the drill here, so please be seated. Please begin. 5 minutes.
All right. Good morning, Chair and members of the Standing Committee on Justice Policy. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you today regarding Bill 132, the Ontario Fair Hydro Plan Act 2017. My name is Vince Brescia, and I am here on behalf of the Ontario Energy Association. The OEA is the credible and trusted voice of the energy sector. We represent Ontario's energy leaders that span the full diversity of the energy industry in Ontario. Our members include electrical and natural gas distributors, transmitters, power producers, energy service providers, and the many professionals and service providers in the sector. Today I'm going to speak about the following 4 aspects of this new legislation: process, enhancing low-income assistance, funding low-income assistance, and rate relief design. First, I would like to start by setting the context for this new legislation. Over the past 15 years, Ontario's electricity system has undergone a massive transformation. In 2003, Ontario had about 30,000 megawatts of electricity capacity province-wide. Based on data from the Independent Electricity System Operator, between 2003 and 2015, Ontario added over 16,000 megawatts of new capacity, representing a massive investment in new generation. In 2003, then Premier Ernie Eves created the Electricity Conservation and Supply Task Force to advise the government on the growing concern about electricity supply in Ontario. When the task force reported in 2004, they suggested that there was a looming electricity supply shortfall and suggested urgent action through long-term contracting with generators to address the deficiency. Electricity demand was increasing, and all 3 major political parties had indicated the province should eliminate its coal generation fleet. The government responded by adding a mix of new nuclear, natural gas, hydro, wind, solar, demand response, and conservation capacity, the roughly 16,000 megawatts of new capacity mentioned earlier. Historically speaking, this probably represents the largest addition of new capacity the province has ever seen in such a short period. Making these investments has delivered significant benefits to Ontario. Firstly, our electricity system is now one of the greenest in the world today, having undergone a massive reduction in emissions, including GHGs. For anyone who believes that climate change is a serious issue that demands action, this has been a welcome transformation. In addition to GHG reductions, the air in Ontario is now cleaner, and we have impressive and diverse range of electricity generation assets, which will benefit Ontarians for decades to come. However, as we all know, making such a large set of investments in such a short period has come at a cost. Given the scale of the investments, electricity rates have had to rise significantly in a short period to help pay for the investments. As we have seen, some Ontarians have faced challenges in managing the pace of this change. So we found ourselves in a situation in Ontario where average Ontarians, opposition parties, and the media were all demanding action to address the pace of change of electricity bills. The Fair Hydro Plan represents the government's response to this situation, and I'm here today to give the OEA's perspective on that response. The first thing I want to do today is commend the government on the process undertaken in developing its response. The OEA was engaged by government officials in meaningful dialogue and options to address the situation Ontario is facing. This included engagement and dialogue from ministry staff, the minister's office staff, the premier's staff, and the premier herself. The OEA greatly appreciates being engaged in this fashion. Unfortunately, in my many years of working on public policy issues, all too often consultation in these situations is either non-existent or entirely perfunctory. This process involved iterative consultation, and we are grateful for the opportunity to have been engaged in this fashion. And I haven't been shy about expressing our discontent with the process in past committee situations, by the way. The Fair Hydro Plan includes an enhancement to the Ontario Electricity Support Program. This is a welcome and positive change. Firstly, the amount of the OSP has been increased by 50%, now providing between $45 and $113 monthly to low-income households. In addition to the income thresholds have been increased, which will make significantly more low-income households eligible for the benefit. Finally, the legislation appears to be taking action to help increase program take-up by enabling partnership with the Ministry of Community and Social Services, which is a direction we support. I didn't realize we could go, we were limited to the 5 minutes, Mr. Chair, so I'm unable to finish the remainder of my remarks, unless you want me to go.
Well, Mr. Brescia, like the government, the work is never done. Mr. Smith, please, PC side, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Brescia. Good to see you. And given your knowledge of the generation sector, do you believe that there's an appetite within the government to renegotiate the contracts that have driven up the price of electricity to amongst the highest in North America?
To be honest, I'm not involved in any internal considerations the government has on contract negotiations. I understand from my discussions with people in the sector that it has been reviewed in some detail, and options are limited for renegotiating the contracts that are in place now, as far as I know. And that's a limited knowledge in terms of, I don't have details on all the contracts.
But as far as the consultation process that you say took place with the OEA, was that ever floated as an option by the government? Hey, why don't we sit down and renegotiate some of these contracts that have driven up the price to where we're at?
We did discuss it a bit. The number of contracts involved and the timeframes involved made it a bit of a Herculean task to try and to change so many contracts in such a short period. Would not have been able to be done quickly. Could go on for, for a process like that could take years trying to go through all those contracts. It takes a lot of time, a lot of lawyers.
Well, there's a lot of contracts.
Yeah.
There's a lot of contracts. I would say it's probably fair to say that the government needed to come up with a plan quicker that was going to try and take the electricity issue off the table than actually fixing the underlying problem in the system. Is that a fair assessment?
I think it's fair to say that there was a rather large hue and cry, I guess, from the general public, including from opposition parties, for quick action on bills. I think anybody who read the papers got that sense from the situation. So yes, I think quick action was demanded.
Were you surprised to see when the leaked cabinet document came out about the fair hydro plan that the price was actually going to spike in a couple of years' time after the next election?
I wasn't surprised by the overall layout of the plan. I think refinancing was as described, going to result in higher costs in future years. It was extending the amortization period on the assets. So our understanding was, yes, that meant future rate recovery.
Do you support that all of those options that you talked about in your paper should have had a true cost-benefit analysis before they implemented any of the new energy sources?
Sorry, can you clarify the question?
So you talked about a lot of new generation, 16,000 megawatts.
Yes.
Was there a cost-benefit analysis done for each of those?
Thank you, Mr. Walker. To the NDP side, Mr. Tabbins.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Brescia, good to see you this morning.
Tabbins,
Thank you for coming.
good to see you as well.
I've been very interested in looking at the plan the government brought forward. If I was to amortize something over an extra decade or so, I wouldn't necessarily see a big drop. I'd see a leveling out over time. Did you model a leveling out as opposed to a big drop prior to the election, and what the cost would be if it was simply leveled out?
Yes, you could model that. In this case, back to the previous question, the contracts themselves weren't renegotiated, so you would have to make some assumptions about your ability to recover some savings when contracts come up again. So it requires some assumptions to be made, but you could in fact come up with a model which showed a smoothing of the rates as the contracts come off.
And are you concerned that after 4 years the prices will start going up fairly substantially, notwithstanding any other pressures that exist in the system?
Yes, it's always a concern. The history of the electricity file in Ontario suggests, that Ontarians don't react very well to price increases. Hopefully there are opportunities as contracts come to for the government to reduce some of the costs that are in the system.
And it looks like we're probably going to have somewhat lower prices for a decade, and then for 20 years prices will be maybe 10% higher than they would otherwise have been. Doesn't that worry you about the sustainability of the electricity system?
I think it is a concern. We've seen this movie several times in Ontario where we have, lowered rates. It happened in 1993 with the NDP, where we froze rates below economic recovery cost. It led to future rate recovery requirement. Another price freeze in 2002 at 4.3 cents, where prices were frozen below economic recovery cost, which led to a need for future. It is a concern. In this case, I'd like to be hopeful that as contracts come off, we can renegotiate and negotiate lower costs so that there may not need to be rate increases, that we get some benefit out of those assets that are in the system. That's what I would like to hope for the system.
And do you see opportunities to reduce overcapacity with contracts that are coming up in the next 3 to 4 years?
Yes, it's going to happen naturally. In fact, the ISO is forecasting a need for 2,000 megawatts in the mid, 2020s. And given the time frame to develop capacity, it's very difficult to get anything developed in Ontario, and getting harder all the time. You need at least a 6-year lead time. So we do have overcapacity now, but we're going to need that, and might even need
so
new.
You don't think we can reduce capacity?
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. To the government side, Mr. Delaney.
Mr. Brescia, would you like to finish your remarks on low-income assistance and rate relief, and finally talk about what you think are the most important issues faced by independent operators and planners of our electricity system?
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. I'd love to finish my remarks. I'll go as quickly as I can, so thank you for the opportunity. The Fair Hydro Plan includes an enhancement to the OESP. This is a welcome and positive change. The amount has been increased by 15%, providing between $45 and $113 monthly to low-income households. In addition, the income thresholds have been increased, which will make significantly more low-income households eligible for the benefit. Finally, the legislation appears to be taking action to help increase program take-up by enabling a partnership with the Ministry of Community and Social Services, which is a direction we support. Another change we strongly support is the move in the Fair Hydro Plan to fund low-income assistance through provincial revenues rather than by ratepayers. There's a very strong public policy case to be made that social programs, like the OESP, are better funded by taxpayers rather than ratepayers. The tax system has been designed to be progressive and generate revenues based on ability to pay, whereas charges for electricity ratepayers, whether fixed or per kilowatt hour, are not. For this reason, the OEA supports the direction of the Fair Hydro Plan to fund social programs and their associated costs through the tax base. Finally, we come to the issue of rate relief, the refinancing of the global adjustment. As I outlined earlier, Ontarians have experienced probably the largest investment in new generation capacity ever to take place in a short time frame. These are fixed costs. Most people think electricity costs are variable when actually most of the costs in the system are fixed. Variable costs, like the energy used to produce power, represent a very small portion of costs. So what do we do? When a provincial consensus develops that includes all 3 major political parties, that something should be done to lower bills now, because Ontarians are having difficulty with the pace of change. Given fixed costs, your options are limited. There are no magic solutions to lower costs, which sometimes have been trotted out by various proponents while this issue is being publicly debated. The option chosen was to better align the amortization of system costs to the expected life of assets, which is a defensible option. From the OEA's perspective, we are very pleased that the government was responsive to our feedback and implemented rate relief using the particular mechanism chosen. We were very concerned that there might be direct intervention into the global adjustment itself. This would have impacted numerous existing contracts in a negative fashion. Instead, the global adjustment itself will remain unaffected by the plan. So we are supportive of the approach, and again, thank the government for being responsive to our concerns. And thanks for the chance to get those comments.
Sir, do you think Ontario's electricity system is cleaner and more reliable now than it was a decade ago?
It definitely is.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney, and thanks to you, Mr. Brescia, for your deputation on behalf of the Ontario Energy Association.